Welcome back to the Electrify Podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo, North America's largest EV festival, coming to a major city near you. Thank you so much for joining me here. Mike Sallee, you're in Idaho, and it seems like you got a rad shop. You got a working shop. And when did you make the switch of saying, EV is a way to make a statement with Conductive Classics? When, because obviously, I'm just going to say, I'm 45 years old and basically seeing things progress. You look to be about my age, and just kind of, when did you say, you know what, this is the way for me to go? Because there's a V8 behind you, but EV is where you're really kind of making some noise, no pun intended.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you think I'm your age. I've got a few years on you, but it was about 3.5 years ago, I think, we picked up this 58 Apache pickup, bought it out of Montana, really nice patina on it, and worn out 6-cylinder engine in it, and we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do with it. And at the time, we've done LS swap and just about everything you can imagine, and Coyote swaps and everything as far as gas motors go. We've been doing it for 25 years, so we were just like, let's try electric and see how it works out. So we that was our first one. We did a Hyper 9 with a 5-speed or transmission adapter for a GM 5-speed. Put a bunch of batteries into the toolbox in the back of it, and it was great. I mean, it took a little while for us to figure out what we were doing, but we're all kind of guys that make things work around here. So it was that was our first kind of dip into the puddle, and at first everybody kind of looked at it and was like, well, why are you doing that? And then you go take them for a ride. And ultimately that's, I think, what sells most people on conversions. We've had that truck around for a couple of years here at the shop. Everybody in the shop, when they had to go somewhere to the hardware store, pick up some metal, do whatever, drop a motor off at the machine shop, they all got in that truck and drove it to wherever they needed to go. So that was our first adventure anyway.
Your motto is electrify the past, and seeing your vehicles. What's really cool about it is the drivetrain is just kind of when you go to your Instagram page, you just see like a bunch of patina or cool hot rods, and then you're like, oh, they're EV. So I think that's what's really cool. But how would you describe your company, Conductive Classics? What's kind of your mission statement? What are you doing? What are you selling?
Basically we do full builds. We're not a parts selling outfit. We have a few things that we've kind of developed along the way that we sell. But for the most part, we do full builds. The mission statement, I guess, electrify the past kind of explains some of it. Our mantra when we're out there talking to people is talking about their classic car that sits in their garage. And how often do you drive it? You drive it once a month or something like that. And how good's that carburetor once a month? When you get out there, is that ethanol gas all gelled up and nasty, and then you let it sit for another month because you don't want to mess with it, and then it's even worse. The cars that we've done, so far we've had, they've been really great. You go out and you unplug them, and they drive the same way that they did when you plugged them in the last time. So I mean, that's kind of our selling point to the hot rod guys is like, yeah, you lose out on, I guess the only thing we haven't really been able to recreate in a fashion that I approve of or like is the sound. Everything else, power, efficiency, what you use it for. Most guys, their hot rod is a Sunday car. Go to the car show, park it there, drive it home. It's not a long distance thing. Nobody really, not nobody, but very few people drive a long distance in their hot rod that's sitting in their garage. Mm-hmm. Some people do it, just because, but very few people do. If you're going to a car show out of state, you're putting it in a trailer. You're driving, you're driving there. You're pulling out of the trailer 3 blocks away from the park. You're driving it into the park and parking it. You're typically not driving very far.
So you're saying you're because I'm looking at your website, and you do have the E-Train package that you sell. Mm-hmm. You're basically, you're not just selling that package, or are you selling that? You're saying, here, this is what drivetrain we're going to outfit and retrofit into your car when we build your car, or do you sell that exclusively as well?
We sell it exclusively as well. That's more or less our jump off. It kind of fits into anything that's front motor, rear wheel drive. That's
Okay.
that's kind of a package that you can throw in there. You end up with a 5-speed transmission that's got a clutch. Everything's usable as far as that goes. The but the drivetrain is, on the website is more or less an example of, where our stuff starts out. I mean, it's a really simple setup to use. Most people, if they wanted to buy that, could figure out the programming and stuff like that to make it happen. And, they can outfit their own batteries, whatever batteries they decide to use, chargers, DC to DCs, all that kind of stuff. The other builds that we've done, have been a little bit more complicated than the truck was. So that's why we've been a hot rod performance shop, whatever you want to call it, for 20, 25 years. So that's what we do. Product sales is, probably something we should do, but, have never really gotten into that. We work on everything out here. Maybe when we're getting close to the end, I can take you on a quick walk through the shop or something like that, just to kind of show you what's here. I mean, we got everything from a 68 Charger with a Hemi swap in it to there's a McLaren sitting over on the other side of the shop.
Cool.
There's a JDM Mitsubishi, one of the off-road, 4-wheel drive ones that they run up the sands in Dubai. So we've got everything in here. So, but yeah, as far as the swaps go, I mean, that's kind of what we do. So
yeah, it's really has what percentage of your business is now Conductive Classics?
It's still a pretty small percentage. I mean, our sister company, or our parent company, I guess, more than anything else, ThrottleWorks is kind of been what we do. It kind of keeps the lights on and all that kind of stuff. We got 4 or 5 guys working for us at any given moment out in the shop, doing performance work on cars. And then, Conductive Classics is me and, maybe 1 or 2 of those guys at any given moment, in the back corner, doing the electric stuff. So
yeah, and you really tapped into something there earlier that you mentioned about, weekend warriors, and hot rodders and going down to the show. So I think in previous podcasts I've talked to Matt Farah. I think he brought it up really well about hot rodders and that experience. Now with it, you talked about you couldn't duplicate the audio or like an exhaust note or that growl or whatever, right? But here you are creating a different experience in that car. Imagine that drop top Cadillac DeVille, right? Cruising down PCH. Now you've created a different sensory experience. The audio, now you can hear the ocean, you know what I mean? As opposed to like, so now you have this completely different sensory, I don't say deprivation, sensory kind of escalation, you know what I mean? So that's just a totally different aspect that you have now created, right?
Oh yeah, and driving down the road and holding a conversation at normal levels with the person sitting in the passenger seat. You don't have to talk over the motor or over any other noises going on. Actually, what you're talking about is it's a point. We went to the State of Charge in Denver 2 years ago for their first one, and I wanted to go for a drive around town a little bit, and it was night. And I pulled up to a stoplight in the Galaxy, and I could hear the crickets off in the grass as I was sitting there at the stoplight. I'm like, that is something that you would never hear in your gas car sitting at the stoplight. Yep. So that's, I mean, it's you do get, and the fact that there is a lack of sound. I think sound, especially with the hot rodders, has always been that thing that correlates with that thrust and that power and everything else. Mm-hmm. And when you hit the gas in the car and it takes off, but you don't have the sound to coordinate with that, people get giddy. They big smile on their face. They're like, I don't know why this is happening, but we're moving fast. So it's definitely a thing that, the minus of the absence of that sound is just as cool as the sound being there, I guess,
Yeah. No, and I'm looking at your cars between the Galaxy and the Apache. So are those customers' cars, or are those kind of your showcase vehicles that you take around to really
the Apache
sell the car?
Was obviously we built that first in-house. We've sold that since.
Okay.
And the Galaxy is another one we built in-house. That one's probably going to be up for sale here in a little while. We've kind of done, almost 2 years worth of shows and stuff like that with it, and it's time to move to something different. We do have
Mhm.
I don't know if the van is on our website or not.
Yeah, it is the
Yeah,
E100, the bright
yeah,
orange, and
that's
I
a
love that.
customer's vehicle, and just getting ready to deliver that to him. It's been taking a little bit longer than I wanted, but we stepped off into doing a few more advanced things with that as far as thermal
Mhm.
management for the battery and stuff like that. We've got a heater and an air conditioning block in that one versus the Galaxy is really, I mean, I say basic, but it's, uh, it wasn't a basic build, but as far as the functionality of it, it's pretty basic. It's got a radiator and some water pumps and a couple of fans, for the batteries, and that's really about it. We didn't go into the trying to thermally manage the batteries completely, where the van has got that bigger system going in it. So
Yeah, well, it's got more room too.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but I think that's by no means are the cars guinea pigs, but I think the Apache was obviously here it is, the letter A, and it's the first vehicle
yeah.
you build, the Apache. So I think as you progress, how would you like to progress this product? So somebody who's listening to this podcast here, Mike, they're like, all right, I want to know how I can have a Conductive Classic, how I could either buy the kit or work with you guys and hire you essentially and
Yeah.
curate a vehicle. What are some of the advancements that you'd like to see or refine? Because obviously, uh, name any hot rodder, right? And they've developed their craft just like you have previous with ICE and combustion engines. What advancements would you like to see in your next customer or personal in-house project?
We're always looking for. We try to be a little bit selective, I guess, about what we choose to convert.
Okay.
I think that's going to go down. That selectiveness is going to get a little bit broader because there's more of an acceptance for it
Mhm.
now. The Apache was an old truck. It never really had a whole lot of power to begin with. It was a six-cylinder, so the sound wasn't something that you're going to miss, and that kind of stuff. So the conversion on that made it really easy. As far as that goes, the Galaxy is a four-door, so nobody really does anything with a four-door Galaxy. Yeah, and the van is something that I think we've kind of made that next step into something that's, that there's a culture out there attached to that vehicle
Mhm.
that you still get the, I guess, negative connotations of converting it. Um, where I think a lot of people have come around to, it's coming around more and more and more. People are kind of coming into accepting it a little bit. The last couple of Electrify Expo shows we've done, um, we've gotten some more positive responses, I guess, than when we were at SEMA.
Oh, man. You know what, though? That's what ruffles the feathers and makes some noise, and if you're kinda bah humbug, like, "Why did you do that to that?" The boys at Square Body Syndicate, I bet they're probably like, "Yo, this is rad," and they have, like, their awesome burnout, van and all that stuff, but, what's cool about it is you're bipartisan, right? You're kind of reaching across the aisle of the ICE over to the EV, and you're not exclusive to either one. At the core of it, you're a hot rodder, and
Yep.
creating an EV car is the ultimate hot rod, right? And it's going to continue on. I'd love to see El Camino, by the way. I think I think that would look really cool, right?
Yeah, I've
Or
actually been looking at
Ranchero.
a couple of different rancheros and a couple of El
Yeah.
Caminos, and something along that lines. I think would be really cool too. You know, the I don't want to. There's another company out there that does EV conversions, and their T-shirts say "Hot Rodding 2.0" on them. I think
Mm,
that's like the perfect explanation.
yeah.
You're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing that the guys that did the 35 Fords back in the day were
Yep.
putting a small block Chevy in them and that kind of stuff, and just taking parts from everything and mix it all together and put it in here. Pull the whole drivetrain out of something and put it into something else. We've
Yep.
done everything under the sun as far as that stuff goes. All-wheel drive, 91 Honda Civic with a K motor, turbo, and, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I mean, that's been the whole theme of what we do forever. So we're just taking different parts and doing the same
Mhm.
thing. Um,
And
I
I'm looking at the E100 build. Sorry to cut you off there. I'm looking at the
no,
E100 build. That's a full body off, and then you're retroing, or are you putting is that you just putting the E100 on a Tesla? Is that what that is? Or is that's the donor car?
The Tesla was the donor car. We took the battery out and the drive out, basically the brakes, the master cylinder, the booster, all that kind of stuff. Just the big components. The idea behind buying a car is so much better than buying the parts, because when you need that little widget or that little thing, that now you got to hunt the internet and try and find it, and then somebody that's actually pulled that little part off of the car or wants to sell it to you. Buying a whole car is a lot better scenario for getting all the pieces you need. But the van has got the battery is actually inside the back of the van, because it wouldn't fit underneath it. And the frames on those vans frames are kind of box sheet metal, almost unibody type of scenario. So that's a full Tesla Model 3 75 kilowatt hour battery that we put in through the windshield, because there was no other way to get it in there, and dropped it into the back. And I built a frame around it. And the guy that owns that's actually a Finnish carpenter, so he's going to do hardwood all over everything and finish it all out inside there. So.
Yeah, it's, and like I said, I think it's really cool of just being disruptive. And if you hate us because you ain't us, you know what I mean, kind of deal.
Pretty much.
And that is a hot rod mentality. And how could you? That's sacrilege. Well, again, the first one that was cut up and chopped up, it's people were probably sacrilege, but that's nowadays. It's fine, and I love the kind of diversity that you guys do in general. Like you said, JDM talking ice and stuff like that. I think that's a testimonial to your craft and taking what and applying that to EV. What kind of retrofitting do you do to the chassis? You talked about, all the different builds of taking that Model 3 or utilizing your own, you talk about your Electrify E-Train package. Also, you said manual. So you're running gears like a normal manual transmission?
Yeah, in the Apache, you could just put it in second gear and drive it and don't use the clutch, nothing. You could take off from a stoplight reasonably, and you could go up to about 45 miles an hour or so in second gear before the motor would start to wind out. And then if you're wanting to go faster, you just upshift to third. If you're trying to jump out into some moving traffic that's moving pretty quick, you can use first gear and shift into second. It kind of gave you the option, but most of the time when we drove it around short drives here and there, second gear, pull up to a stoplight, no clutch, no nothing necessary, roll away, just fine, cool. Good to go. The Galaxy is definitely a little bit more of a build. We rebuilt the frame on the car from the firewall to the rear bumper, and that was to expand the frame around the battery, because the frame was narrower than the battery to begin with. So we built the frame around the battery all the way to the back, got the penthouse of the battery, the Model 3 battery, right underneath the back seat, just like it was in a Model 3, and then built the structure in to carry the entire Model 3 rear cross member. So you have the independent rear suspension, all that kind of stuff. And then it's on air ride, and that car rides like a dream. It goes down the road like Grandpa's Cadillac and just sucks it all up. So.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. And again, all this can be found at conductiveclassics.com. Yeah, I mean, it's extensive. I mean, you talk about the weight, the weight of the vehicle, the weight of the battery, excuse me. That's kind of the significant amount. So I think it's smart putting it on air ride. That was, I think, a great.
The Galaxy actually weighs about 30 pounds less than the Model 3 that we pulled everything out of.
Really?
Yep.
Which is what? Still, it's a ton.
Right at 4,000 pounds.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. And the van is about the same weight. I think the van weighs right at 4,000 pounds too.
Yeah.
So overall, weight really isn't the big thing. I think, when it comes down to like the range and stuff like that you get out of either one of those vehicles, more of it comes down to, drivetrain, rolling resistance that the car, the Teslas are all designed a little bit better for that, and aerodynamics. I mean, you're pushing a big brick down the road. The Galaxy was never designed to be aerodynamic. So, but still gets, I get about 150 miles of range on the freeway going 70 miles an hour, and right around 200 in town,
Okay.
So
yeah, I think that's absolutely manageable. Like you said, I know you're at the Electrify show off in Long Beach. I'm seeing photos of it. Did you drive it down, the Galaxy?
No, that was my first leg though of a freeway trip to let's see how far it'll go. So when we left here at the shop, I charged it up to 100%. and then started heading that way. I got to Twin Falls, which is basically where you turn off to start heading south. I got to there about 150 miles away. I was down to like 18% battery. And then we loaded it up on a trailer from there because we had to get there. So,
Yeah, no,
but after that, it's charge it up and good to go. As far as that goes, still not fast charge. That's the other reason we've been working on thermal management, is to try and get that DC fast charging down. It's still kind of in the works for us. We have a couple of friends that have in the industry that have done it, and I kind of been working with a couple of them a little bit, and trying to get that stuff figured out, because I'd really like to be able to DC fast charge it, even if it wasn't as fast as some of the OEMs, just a little bit quicker, so that you could technically do a road trip if you wanted to.
Yeah. But, yeah, I know. You mentioned friends. Who are some allies that you've really kind of joined arms with? Because I think this space, rising tide lifts all ships. Who are some friends and assets and allies that you've really, again, joined arms with?
If you've been around a little bit, you've probably seen Kevin Erickson's satellite, his Plymouth satellite. He's one of the people that we met when we went down to Sonoma for Holly High Voltage. He was one of the first guys that kind of walked up to us and was like, "Hey," because we just had the Apache then, and he was like, super cool dude. His build is awesome. He's done it all himself in his garage, and he's kind of developed. He's got it to where he can fast charge that car. He drove back from Holly High Voltage to Denver in his satellite, charging along the way and that kind of thing. And one of the things that has been kind of a goal, and we may or may not get there depending on if we sell the Galaxy or not, but I kind of wanted to get our Galaxy fast charging, and then him and I kind of go do a proof of concept drive, Denver down, down the coast, or go over to the coast and then down the coast and back over to Denver or something, kind of, have us both, driving and charging along the way and kind of videoing and everything. So if we get that done in time with the Galaxy, then we'll do that. If not, it'll be the next car. So.
Yeah, and I think that's great. Excuse me. Yeah, I think that really taps into, again, just hot rodding camaraderie. And I'm looking at Electrolyte, just such a cool car. Here it is on, Mopar Connection. So and that's I have.
He's doing a DeLorean right now too. He's doing a conversion on one of those for a client, and Electric 51 Speed Shop, Casey Lauder in Salt Lake. Super cool dude. He's done a couple of Apaches. He had Apache pickup in SEMA the same time we were there. That gray one. I don't know if you were there or not, but that gray one that was just dumped on the ground. Sick build, just crazy.
Yeah, and the patina, and again, that just taps right into just picking up right where we continue on. Yeah, I'm at SEMA every year. I'm the voice of SEMA show, so I'm out there. So much stuff to see if you have not been to SEMA show. Speaking of shows, Electrify Expo, are you going to make any other rounds and get out there and showcase? And either obviously Miami just passed, but Austin, are we going to see you at Austin? That's kind of the big one that's coming up.
Yep, absolutely. We're headed to Austin. We've got it all figured out. I'm actually bringing the detail doctor, the detail kid. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a pretty cool kid, and so his dad and I are going to drive down to Austin together, and then he's going to fly in because he has to go to school. But
right.
But yeah, he's so we're going to make the Austin show. I told him, it's like, hey, the only way I'm going to this show is if I can drive the car on COTA. And I said, I don't care if you arrest me afterwards. I'm driving my car on COTA. So.
Right.
But because the car when we did Holly High Voltage, it was at what track was that at? I can't remember.
You're talking about Beach Bend Raceway Park? Was that? Oh no, that was at Sonoma, right?
Sonoma, Sonoma Raceway. So we were there, and I had asked the guys at Holly, I'm like, hey, can I get a lap on the track? We just want to film, no fast, no sliding or nothing crazy like that. It's a Galaxy. And they're like, well, I don't know. And I went and found the track officials, and I'm like, hey, I need to get on the track. And they're like, okay, well, if you're here Sunday morning at 8:30 in the morning, we'll get out there and we'll set it up so you guys can go. And I got out there, got Kevin out there on the track, and got Casey out there on the track, and we did a bunch of filming and stuff like that. It was a good time. So I'm like, I really want to do some laps on Coda in the car just for the filming purposes. I'm not going to try and break any records or anything like that.
No, and that again gets back into your hot rodding roots. You're like, hey, like, oh, there's so much room for activities. Let's get out there.
Yep.
Who's the detail doctor? Pardon my ignorance.
Well, the detail doctor, he's a detail guy here in town. I actually met them at Sun Valley Road Rally. Well, now they call it Tour de Force. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. They closed down a 5-mile section of highway north of Sun Valley, Idaho, and they basically open it up to Lambos, Porsches, Bugattis. You go as fast as you want on that open highway. So we built, as part of our hot rodding scenario, we built a 74 MGB, put a Cadillac 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder in it, and 5-speed transmission. And my GM office manager guy drove that 162 miles an hour on the highway up there in an open top MG.
Ooh wee. Yeah. All right.
There's guys going 200 or over 200 miles an hour on a 2-lane highway in Idaho. So
yeah. What do you think of when are your paths going to cross in regards to something like this? Like remots. You look at the power there, that high speed electric supercar. When are those paths going to cross? Here you got something like Tour de Force or TX2K, and there's kind of all these events, right? And underground racing develop their crazy cars, or if it's Sheepy and all these crazy exotic high speed builds. Do you kind of foresee you doing something funky like that?
Yeah, I think that what's really cool, what's going on now is we use a lot of Tesla stuff, or we do Hyper 9s because they're inexpensive and simple. But I think what's really going to be a big game changer is all the OEMs now that are producing electric cars. It's once those hit the aftermarket, or end up in the auctions when they've been wrecked or stuff like that, and seeing what BMW has out there that you can use, and what Volvo has. Is the battery pack good? Is the motor good? What can we pull off of those cars and use in the hot rodding world of converting cars? I think some of the challenges we've run into. The biggest challenge, I think, for most of it is batteries. The amount of batteries you have to have in order to create some sort of decent range. And then on top of that, the motor that'll go with that voltage to create the power you want and that kind of stuff. So I think the more options we get out there as far as parts to call from, vehicles to call parts out of, I think that's going to improve the market for guys like us that do conversions. It'll be a matter of unlocking that stuff. Right now, as far as the Model 3 stuff goes, there's only a couple companies that have access or have taken the time to access that stuff. So it's as that grows, what's going to be the better one to have? Who's got that better motor? Who's got that small battery pack that'll get you where you want to go?
Yeah. And like you said, here's, hey, it'd be great to go buy a Remots and chop it up and do this, but you wouldn't do that, right? So, and you wouldn't buy a brand new Polestar and start chopping that thing up. As you said, here's now donors, and I announced the Formula Drift Championship, and Matt Field, who just got third in the championship. Anyways, he's building the C8 Corvette. It's going to be ICE, but it's a purpose built. So he bought it was a terribly smelling car because it was a flooded C8 Corvette. So there's a donor car. Throw some, match that up with some electric, EV setup. That'd be pretty slick, and that's kind of what you're doing, right? You're kind of looking at this new forged ground and dealing with what you're dealt. And that's that hot rodding spirit. I feel like we're just talking about hot rodding. We're not really saying like, hey, EV, check it out. I think you're doing such a good job, and you really tapped into it right out of the gate. What hot rodders are and what they do, very few are going cross country trips. I mean, it might be drag week, and even then,
and those are all purpose built, right? They're that's what they're building them for. And if we were trying to build an EV to do that, then it would be built specifically with those parameters in mind and that kind of stuff in order to, because those guys have to do that too. I mean, they're not out there just building their drag car and then thinking they're going to drive it across country. It's got to have a proper cooling system. It's got to have a big enough gas tank. It's, all those things come into play. So it's the same thing. If we were going to try and pull off something like that in the EV world, we would have to, okay, we need this much battery, we need this kind of power, we need, all that stuff's going to come into play, the same way as it would if you were building a gas car.
Absolutely. And I mean, I hope people listening right now, they're tuning in, they're inspired either by you or want to work with you and, obviously hire you to build their vehicle. I think it's so great. What's kind of next for Conductive Classic? You talk about these builds, you talk about this, Electrify Expo, going to COTA, you're going to rip around there instead of track. I'm joking, you're not. But, I mean, here you're running on cars it's F1, and that's now the pinnacle, right? What else, man? Like, anything else you kind of want to promote as far as Conductive Classics, what you got cooking, anything else?
We're looking at a couple of different cars for the next build when the Galaxy, finally leaves us and goes on to a new home. And, I think now we're more looking for something that blows people's minds rather than something that people wouldn't do anything with anyway. I have a friend that I've been partners with on a race car for a long time. I'm really trying to twist his arm to see if he'll, allow me to take that car and convert it. It's been a tough argument because it is such an iconic car. It's a E30 M3.
Okay, sick.
So and we've, between him and I, we've had this car for over 15 years. So we bought it back when they were cheap. There wasn't ever a lot of them, but we bought it back when they were cheap, and we just, cut it and caged it and widened it and did all the, fuel cell and all that kind of stuff. And, we took it out to the track and raced it. It had, 400 horsepower on the wheels and weighed 2,600 pounds. It was an animal of a car on the track. But he moved, and the car's been sitting here at our shop, and I'm so busy with everything else, I haven't had time to do anything with it. So it's been sitting for a few years, and I keep sending him messages. Hey, I've started on the conversion. Hey, I've started on the conversion. And he calls me immediately, like, don't do that. So I'm working on him really good, to see if we can do that. But yeah, we're going to try and find something that, is actually more upsetting the apple cart than trying to slip underneath it and, just be a, covert about it,
So you like poking the bear.
Well, I didn't initially because nobody likes a bunch of hate, right? It's kind of gets old after a while. Yeah. But as it's gone on, and after SEMA actually was a really good thing, because we had people walking into that area, and the Apache was like right there. After you walked through Battle of the Builders, you were walking right straight at our Apache, and a lot of them didn't look up to see that you were walking into the electrified zone.
Oh, got it.
And they would walk in and they'd see the truck and they'd be like, "Oh, this is cool." And they'd look in the hood and they go, "Oh." And I'd be like, and I would target those people. I would look at those people and I would be like, "Hey, come over here. Why don't you like it?"
Yeah.
And they'd be giving me, "Oh, well, you can't go very far." I'm like, "Okay, this is a 58 Apache. It gets 90 miles on the charge that's in it. Are you going to drive this thing more than 90 miles?"
Yeah.
No. You're not going to take this truck across country. It's lowered. It's got it rides okay, but it's not super comfortable. All that kind of stuff that you'd want in something to go across country. So you're not going to do that. So check that off the list. What else don't you like about it? And just kind of go down. And I would say 75% of the people that walked away were like, "Okay, I get it. I'm probably not going to do it to anything I own, but I get it." And that's kind of my accomplishment, I would say, in the whole thing was like getting people to just come around a little bit and go, "Okay, now I understand. I get the concept," and that kind of thing. So
and again, it's just a different way of thinking, and it's just a total mindset. And I've really enjoyed, just the last few months that I've hosted this podcast. I've really enjoyed just these conversations because here I don't own any EVs. I really love it. And, I come from Formula Drift. I announced Nitro Cross, which is all electric, 1,000 horsepower, all electric rallycross cars and very capable machines, Pastrana flying. So I announced that. And just talking to guys like you that have all right, cool. And like BC Moto, like they made that shift, and it wasn't easy, but it's kind of like, come on, man, like it's a no brainer. And again, for Matt calls them widgets, like I don't love that, but I understand that, and like the
Mhm.
ruined the ruined EV guys, like just the diversity is really cool. And it is mind expanding. It's a different way of thinking. And I
And,
love that you're bringing that in.
and when you get into those groups a little bit, I mean, when we were down in Long Beach, I saw the ruined guys with their Teslas and stuff there,
Mm-hmm.
and I went up to those guys. I'm like, "Hey, where can I get one of those stickers? I just want the ruined sticker because everybody says I ruined it anyway." And they're like, "You know what? You're in." You know,
Did
they're like, "You're
they
in.
tase you?
Here's a sticker."
Is that how you
What's
get
that?
jumped? I said, did they tase you? Is that how you get jumped into the gang? I'm joking. They like, you
No,
get jump
a super
started.
cool bunch of guys, though. I mean, they're
Yeah, they
just,
are.
yeah, they are awesome. They've just, they just welcomed us right in and said, "Yeah, you've done what we do. You just did it to a different car."
Yep.
And technically underneath the Galaxy, it's a Model 3 anyway. But
Yep.
they're just like, this is exactly what we do. And we got a reputation right off the bat for, lowering them and putting different wheels and doing all the stuff that they do. Everybody would say, "Well, you've ruined your car." And I was like, "Yeah, that just fits. That just fits
I
so
know.
well."
It's a sheep in, it's a sheep in wolf's clothing.
Yep.
Like they're just owning the sheep, but then just modify it. It's just such a eye-opening world. And that's where, again, it's just that aha moment. And that's why I started out like, what was that aha moment? And I think that you undeniably just knew that, what am I trying to accomplish here as this car and this hot rod, and you tapped right into that, man. So thank you so much. Yeah, I want to go take me on a little tour here. I want to see the variety. And again, do you have which EV vehicle do you have there
We
in
got
the
the
shop?
got the Galaxy actually sitting
The
right
van?
outside the door here. So there's the.
Sweet.
Might be a little bit difficult because the camera's
Yeah,
backwards from everything I'm trying to do here.
glitchy. Yeah.
But there's the Galaxy. You can see there's a Z06 Corvette up on the lift back there. There's
Yep.
the Charger with the Hemi swap in it. Supercharged
Sick.
Camaro that we did. Where's the truck at? Oh, the
Yeah.
57 pickup right there. That thing's a beautiful truck.
Yeah.
Let me see
Just
if I
all
can
over the
do this.
board. And I think that this all just adds to the variety and your knowledge. Here you are applying old school, new school, all the schools, electric school.
Yep. Well, and we're a shop that has
Oh,
pretty much
that
worked on everything. There's that.
Mitsubishi is fire. Yeah, was it Montero or
Yeah,
Pajero?
it's dang it.
I think it's a Pajero. Can't
Yeah,
recall.
it's a
Those
Pajero.
are
Yeah, it's a
awesome.
Pajero.
Yep. I
But
love
yeah,
those things. Look at the Rally Oz wheels.
yeah, I've always loved those wheels too. I wanted to get a
Yep.
set of those for the E30 when we were building it, but
Oh, let's go. Yeah, you can almost. I mean, I'd love to see again with Nitro Cross. There's the E. So
yeah,
sick.
there's the van.
The EV100, baby. I think it's so cool.
And this thing is, the thing I like too is when we do these conversions with the Model 3 stuff, I don't know if you can be able to see it or not,
Yeah, it's pretty dark, but yeah, I mean,
but you end up with the full independent rear suspension. The car rides great when it's going down the road. I mean,
yeah,
this guy just drove this van. He took his kid up to a mountain bike race up at Bogus Basin, which is a ski resort here. And
yeah.
he's like, "Man, I had a blast driving that thing down the road, up the mountain and coming down, and it was all regen on the way down." He's like, "I hardly ever touched the brakes, and it was just great." So
No, it's cool, man. And again, just what a great application and all that. It's really awesome, Mike. And I love what you guys are doing at Conductive Classics and your overall shop. And seems like you got a good spirit, man. And keep on keeping on, man. And where any other again, we talked about future projects. Anything else you want to plug at all before we sign off?
no, I mean, if you're looking for a build, I can tell you right now, there's probably not one that we can't do. But yeah, I mean, give us a holler, give us a chance, and we'll put something cool together for you.
Yeah, conductiveclassics.com, and also on Instagram. I found you out there again, as it's just Conductive Classics. So about 1,000 followers, and I know you got best of show at Long Beach, and congratulations, man, and keep up all the good electrified work, man.
Awesome. I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Thanks for listening to the Electrify Podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo. Be sure to catch full video episodes on YouTube at Electrify TV and follow along on social media for daily clips and more.